The sun was a fist in my face when I finally woke up, and my head felt like the drum a bad drummer had been using for a practice session. Too much rye and too many thoughts of a case that had little to go on. Normally, I don't get hung over. Whiskey usually helps me think, up to a point. I must have exceeded that point last night. I figure I better get a move on before the day gets away from me. I got dressed, went to the elevator, and up to my fourth-floor office. Time to find out all I could about Dolores Fletcher, her father Jasper Fletcher, and the stiff Kurt Fletcher. Dolores was an open book, and not the kind you'd curl up with on a rainy afternoon. Her life was splattered all over the gossip pages, a cheap paint job for all of Los Angeles to see. The society page coughed up her every move, from what she ate to who she was seen with. Most of it was just noise, the kind that clutters a radio late at night. But a man in my line of work cannot afford to skip a single station. You never know when a stray signal might come through with just the piece you need. Since her brother's killing, Dolores, it seemed, had not left the home she lived in with her father, and wherever she went, she had a bodyguard. I thought there was something suspicious in that, and I might need to see the professor about it. I went back through the Time Society pages to before the killing and started there. The night before the killing, she was at the Midnight Orchid, the main attraction there being Mothra's singing act. She was there with a group of other debutantes drinking and dancing. The paper had detailed descriptions of her dress and the fact that she had no male escort. Other than that, nothing. 2 days prior to the murder, she was seen at the beach with a young male movie star named Brian Branson. Probably not his real name. I will have to look into him in more detail later. After going back several days, I did not have a sizable list of names to look into, but it was a start. Since the father kept himself out of the newspapers, I looked into the brother. Kurt Fletcher, 29 years old, newly minted scientist, traveled to Europe recently, spent a year working with other scientists in Austria. He was a doctor in physics. He was shot once in the head, and his body was discovered in his car off Imperial Highway last Saturday morning. The LA County Sheriff's Office has not released any other information as of yesterday. The newspaper article then goes on to talk about Dolores. My next steps will be to meet with Dr. Fletcher at the university, but first I will talk to my longtime friend and ally, Detective Sergeant Gamera. I picked up the horn, dialed the precinct number, and asked for Homicide Division. Upon being patched over, I asked the faceless voice for Detective Sergeant Gamera.
Hold on a minute.
After a minute, my friend's gruff but welcome voice answered, "This is Detective Gamera." My longtime friend and ally had changed into a typical police detective, and he played the part well. He wore a suit that was clean but never seemed to fit right, a permanent wrinkle across the back of the jacket where it tried desperately to cover his shell. Why he bothered wearing a suit over his shell was more out of pride in his job than anything else. His hands were thick and scarred, more suited to a construction site than a police desk, but they held a pencil with surprising delicacy when he was taking witness statements. Gamera was never one for small talk, and even less so since being on the force. He dealt in facts, and facts were a cruel mistress. He knew every back alley, every game room, and every two-bit con artist in his precinct by name, not because he was their friend, but because they were his work. He was gruff with the rookies, short with the press, and even shorter with the fat cats in City Hall who wanted a case closed yesterday. He wasn't in it for the glory, the money, or the power. He was in it because the dead couldn't speak for themselves and someone had to listen. His honesty wasn't a moral choice, it was a professional one. In a city full of lies, a man had to find a thread of truth to pull on, even if it led to a dark and ugly place. When I could get him away from his work, it was the old Gamera again. For now, on the phone, it was the gruff and gritty Detective Sergeant Gamera. I didn't lead off with my name. I let my voice be my only identification. I said, "I've met some hard-boiled eggs in my time, but your personality is harder than your shell. Can you loosen up for me a little bit?" "Well, if it isn't my favorite Seamus," he responded. "To what do I owe this pleasure? What, do you need some help finding some old broad's lost kitten?" I responded, "That would probably be more crimes solved than you have, wise guy." Yeah. What's the ring up for? I got a case list longer than your tail. Let's get together, have a chat, some dinner and a few drinks. Sounds like you're flirting with me. I'll have you know I'm a chaste woman. With that face, what choice do you have? We set up a meeting at Skip's for dinner. I hung up the phone and picked it up again, dialing the number for the main switchboard at UCLA. After being handed off to several other switchboards, the phone finally rang on the other end.
Science department.
"Hello, my name is Zilla. I'm a private detective, hired by Professor Fletcher. I need to speak to him if he's not busy."
He's in the lab. There's no phone there. Can I have him call you back?
"Yes, please." I gave her my number and hung up. While I waited, I ran down the list of what I knew. First off, Kurt Fletcher, Ph.D., son of Jasper Fletcher, Ph.D., brother of Dolores Fletcher, Society Darling. Kurt Fletcher, Ph.D., murdered 3 days ago, found in his car, shot in the head. Assailant unknown, motive unknown. Dolores Fletcher is possibly at risk. Jasper Fletcher is possibly at risk. The Fletchers do not think that the cops are taking the case seriously. Jasper Fletcher was at work only 4 days after his son was murdered. GDZilla, Private Investigations. This is Professor Fletcher. You wanted to speak to me? I do, but not over the phone, and not at the university. Can we meet? Yes, of course, but not tonight. I'll be in the lab late. Do you have any news for me? Right now I have more questions than answers, and you only hired me yesterday. Apologies. This whole thing has me on edge. I thought to myself, apparently you're not on edge enough to keep you in mourning for at least 4 days. I said to him, "My office or your home, either is fine with me. I need more information, and some of it you can provide. I will do whatever I can. I should be home by 7 p.m. tomorrow. Will that work?" "That will do just fine." He gave me the address and hung up. His address was a West Adams special. There was a time when the West Adams neighborhood was the city's Sunday best, the kind of place with more gingerbread than a baker's convention. It didn't figure that a professor's salary could afford a place in that burb, so the cash had to be coming from someplace else, somewhere a lot less dusty than a university. I settled back in my creaky desk chair. The only thing to do was to wait for my meeting with Gamera. I pulled out a stogie, a cheap one, and lit it with a match that fizzled a little too loud in the stillness. Then I popped the cork on a bottle of whiskey, the kind that scalds your throat on the way down, and I poured a couple of fingers into my glass. The amber liquid glowed in the dim light, a temporary truce in a world that never stopped trying to pick a fight. While I waited, I thought about my old friend Gamera. I thought about the days before the Kaiju War, the 5 Yahi and the 5 Yahan existing together, though competing constantly. Being the leader of the Yahi, I had my hands full making sure the Yahan didn't get out of control. Mothra kinda stayed out of the fray, preferring to sing to the Ningen and anyone else who would listen. Gamera, Pila, and Akoban helped me keep the Yahi in line. It was my friend Gamera who came to my aid the very first time Ghidorah tried to push his way into leadership of the Kaiju. I probably could have defeated Ghidorah by myself, but it would have weakened us both severely and done untold damage to the humans and the environment. Even with his 3 heads, Ghidorah didn't see Gamera's attack coming, and he was forced to withdraw. It took over 100 cycles before Ghidorah tried again, and then it led to the Kaiju War that was so devastating. Gamera lost his best friend Akoban in that war, and even though he's a tough cookie, Mothra still senses a hole in Gamera's heart over it. Since the treaty with the modern Ningen, or humans as they call themselves, Gamera has been busying himself with his work as a detective, and when he isn't working, he's tinkering with his engines. He is fascinated with the humans' engines, both steam and gasoline. Tomorrow, our meeting wouldn't be just talk and whiskey. I needed his advice, and I needed some information.